So I can't really tell you much about the first couple of days after Sue passed. It was just this fog of tears and hugs and people calling and people coming by in my neighborhood, Stony Point represent. I mean, they've been amazing, and there was just a lot of activity. But at some point, I remember someone saying Sue's superpower was friendship.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that person was in the room or on the phone or who that was.
It was Sam.
It was Sam, of course it was Sam. But that stuck with me because right in that moment, that's what I felt. Not just the friendships that she kept alive over all those decades, but how she brought everyone together and everyone who loved her. And now you are here, right? And you show your love for her. You show your support for me, and you help me celebrate what an amazing woman she was. And I wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today. And I know that to most of you, she was a friend, she was a neighbor, she was a college roommate or whatever. There will be time, and I want to hear those stories. And if they're funny, then you get bonus points. Because her license plate was make you laugh. Right? Yep. We had a little thing on a boat, and there was a reading. It's up on the front, and it's all about how you shouldn't be all. Obviously, we're sad, but let's not focus on that, right? Let's celebrate what an amazing person she was. I have to peek. Friend, coworker, neighbor, check, check, check. Family. Her mom, Elaine, is right here in the front room. And if you have not said hi yet, I would highly encourage you to come by and introduce yourself. She's very curious about who all is here and how you knew Sue. And she wanted everyone to come up and introduce yourself. And I'm like, that might take a little long. But if you could just do it for her, that would be much appreciated. Her sister Janie was supposed to join us here. She's been having some health issues, but if the Zoom gods are so willing, we'll be hearing from her virtually. And this gentleman in the front here is sweating over making sure that that's going off as planned. So that'll be next. So who else was Sue? Sue was a parent. That probably was the most surprising thing that happened in her life. That was not a role she had envisioned herself in growing up at all, and it took a little bit of doing, but boy, I mean, she was sitting right next to me week after week, month after month, year after year, where all the softball games and the soccer matches and the school plays and the robotics competition and those interminable academic achievement awards they make you sit through for some reason. The parents here know what I mean. It's like they're horrible. And the graduation ceremony, and she was right there offering encouragement and hugs and Band-Aids and advice and rules and more advice and discipline and things that probably will resonate for decades, because that's how parenting is, right? Yeah. You tell them something, they don't do it. And then 20 years later, they're like, oh yeah, that's how that's supposed to go. So yeah, Sue was most definitely a parent. But of course, what she was most to me was my partner and the woman I've loved for 18 years and whose life I shared. And I have to tell you, that was her biggest role yet. I mean, if there were like a writing room in like Hallmark Channel or some Harlequin thing, and they would write the character of Sue, they'd go like, we need to tone that down. That's She was so expressive and creative and so romantic and so just over. I have shoeboxes and shoeboxes full of these cards that are densely written in her nearly illegible handwriting, just telling me how much she cherished me and our life together, and how lucky we were to have one another, and how beautiful everything was. And there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't know. I had her whole heart, and she had mine. And that's not to say we didn't quibble. Sue was a perfectionist with a great eye for detail. And I'm a roll with the punches, big picture kind of person. So that set up a natural amount of tension. And she had what we would call at the house affectionately her SLQs. Sue's lovable quirks. And that would entail, for example, the fact that when something did not meet her high standards, be it a product or a service, that would be brought up, and there would be a return and a refund. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter whether it was a high-end piece of clothing or a wilted head of lettuce. She would go after that with the exact same energy, and she would get it done. And it was the principle that counted, right? That's the Sue we all know. I have probably been moved. I know I've been moved from more hotel rooms than any of you, and most likely more than all of you combined, because there was a rattle in the air conditioning, or a musty smell in the bathroom, or the view was just not quite what she had in mind. And in the beginning, that was problematic. In the beginning, because I always took care of our travel arrangements. I was the travel planner. So it felt like she was critiquing me, like she was rejecting what I was doing. It hurt. There were tears at times. But throughout the years, I just learned to go to the bar, have a glass of champagne, and wait for my sweet upgrade to be negotiated. Because that is exactly what was happening, and the outcome was inevitable. That is exactly what was happening at every single time. And I have to do it again. Travel. Travel was her thing. Next to her people, that was her reason for living. That wasn't a hobby for her. She needed to go see the world the way other people need to write books or create art. It made her feel alive. It was not an option. If there had ever been any kind of life for her where she couldn't have traveled, that would have been the worst possible thing. And I am grateful that she never had to experience that. There are a lot of things that I'm grateful for. In her lifetime, Sue went to over 70 countries. And she would not be happy with me right now for not knowing the exact number, because she knew it at all times. I did sit down and I counted up the number of countries we've been together in our 18 years together, and I came to 32. Wow. Which is not even half. But I would like to think that those were her favorite ones. Yeah, right, me hoping that. But I mean, we hand-fed pandas, we cuddled koalas, we petted the lions, we walked the Great Wall of China, and we wrestled retired sumo wrestlers, and we cruised Galapagos and the Chobe River and the Zambezi. We swam with the whale sharks and the manta rays, and she got in a cage with a great white down in the Cape of Africa, which she was like, that was very disappointing, but she did it. We slept in a hotel made of ice, and then we went dog sledding through the Arctic winter in northern Sweden in January, which is a magical experience, and I can highly recommend it. But we've been all over the place, and we did all manner of things, and so many times after those trips. But sometimes just because she would say that if I fall over dead tomorrow, I'll have had no regrets. I have an awesome life, and I'm okay with that. And I always thought she was being dramatic.
Which she was.
Which she was. But I'm so grateful that she did it now. Right? Because that is a comfort. The way she passed was quick, unexpected. That is a comfort. I mean, there's a lot of good here. And obviously, all the support that I enjoy, that is such a blessing. And again, I thank you so very much. And I know I had something else. Oh, I've left out the pangolin, Honey Bun. Honey Bun the pangolin. That was kind of the capstone in her life, she said. I don't know what she got out of those scaly, they look like walking artichokes to me. But she bonded with this nearly extinct mammal. And she has about 5 T-shirts, which means I now have about 5 T-shirts from the Save the Pangolins Foundation. And that was just something that was almost mystical for her. So she had a wonderful life. And yes, she left us way too soon, but there is no better testimony of just a life well lived, but looking out here and seeing everyone who showed up. Death in itself is not a tragedy. It happens to us all eventually. Sorry, that was not a laugh line, but it is true. It's only a tragedy if it happens if that life hasn't been fully lived. And that is not the case here. So I'm hoping that I hear a lot of fun stories. If you're brave enough to come up here, or else later on, this will just be a reception with like little groups. We'll have indoor space, outdoor space. You'll get the flow of it. What we're gonna try next is we're gonna see if we can get Janie to zoom in.
Yeah.
And Tim has some handouts for that portion. And for me going forward, my directive is to live the life that Sue would have wanted to live with me. So that means the travel will continue, and I'm going to take her to many places. So to me, this is not the end of our story. Story continues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to modern technology, I'm still able to share a few thoughts about my amazing sister. I would also love to hear, as Tina said, any anecdotes you have. You can either call, text, or email me at 314-249-4579 or plain Janie at sbcglobal.net. For those of you who don't know, I live in St. Louis, Missouri, in the Midwest. Sue lived a full life, as Tina said, even though we would all agree that she was taken too soon. She packed a lot into her 62 years. And I also heard Sue say that if she went tomorrow, she would have no regrets. As Tina said, Sue traveled to more than 70 countries around the world with plans to visit many more. She caught the bug when our parents took us on the trip of a lifetime around the world. Sue was just 14. We traveled mostly to Asia, some of which now exist under different names, like Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka, and Burma, which is now Myanmar. And we even traveled to Iran when the Shah was in power. Sue found the perfect job that allowed her to travel internationally for many years. She always managed to fit fun in with work. No surprise. She often shared her travel adventures via an email in which she described her experiences, including the culture, the language, and the food. Her emails were so descriptive that the reader felt like he or she was right there with Sue. My mom's friends loved Sue's emails. They were like a fun history lesson. I often told her she should compile them into a book. Although Sue disliked change, she wore her hair the same way until after college. She was very adventurous. In recent years, when we would be out together, she would tell people she was the fun sister. More than 15 years ago, she told me I needed to get a better looking pair of glasses, and that comment started an obsession for me to find unique frames which she would approve of. Never got to see the ones I have on today. Most things came easy to Sue. She was naturally bright, very creative, a good athlete, good singer, good dancer, and wonderful photographer. She loved to make people laugh. She obviously thought she was funny. Her email on her car license were make you laugh, MAQLAF. She and I were raised Jewish. Our paternal grandparents came from Russia, and our maternal great-grandparents came from Germany and Alsace-Lorraine. Sue didn't practice Judaism in the traditional sense, but she was proud of her heritage, and it formed the way she lived her life. In preparing my comments for today, a Yiddish word came to the top of my mind, mensch. It's a high compliment to be called a mensch, for a mensch is an honorable and decent person, an authentic person, a person who helps you when you need help. That describes my sister to a T. She nurtured her friends just as you would tend a garden. She had legions of friends, as you attest to, going all the way back to her grade school days at Washington School. If you became a friend of Sue's, you became her friend for life. I am sure each of you has a story you might share later today. Excuse me. Last year, before I was diagnosed with my second bout of breast cancer and the pandemic struck, we had plans to travel to England to the Chelsea Flower Show. I'm sure it wasn't at the top of Sue's list, but she wanted to go because she knew I wanted to. Instead, she traveled to St. Louis in March to be with me for my surgery and remained with me, cared for me through my last chemotherapy treatment. Until now, she's been by my side, guiding me and helping me through all of my medical conditions. I always said she got the science brain. I told everyone, including her, many times before she died, that I was so blessed to have her here with me last year. I was so privileged to have Sue in my life for as long as I did. I wouldn't change anything except the length of time we had together. I will never forget the twinkle in her eye and her impish grin. I will carry her in my heart forever. I miss her terribly.
I'm going to have to read, I'm sorry. Tina did well with more impromptu, but weeks ago when Tina asked me if I would speak at the celebration today, I said, of course, and I was honored to have been asked. Then I spent a long time trying to decide exactly what it is I would say, and yet here we are, celebrating a life that touched so many of us in such a wonderful and powerful way. How do you pay respects and share memories of someone who is still so alive in our hearts? This is a celebration of Sue's life, a time for all of us to share our memories of laughter and love, for someone whose whole life seemed to be about making all of us laugh and feel good. Right now, and for these last few months, many thoughts of great times that I had with Sue have flooded my mind, usually bringing a great big smile to my face. I remember Sue all concerned and worried about how she will go about raising the rent on her tenant, who was already paying a ridiculously below market rent. I was able to convince her that it would be okay and that she could raise the rent. And she did, and the tenant stayed, and they paid. But that was Sue. She would always worry about others and put others' needs ahead of her own. Some of us called her a big softie, but that was exactly what made Sue so special. I've known Sue, her sister, sorry. I've known Sue, her sister Jane, and her mother Elaine for over 45 years. And although I knew Sue for so long, it really wasn't until much later in life, when we were both living out here in Southern California, that we realized we really had a lot more in common. That's when Sue and I became really close. Sue and I shared a lot with each other, but cars and real estate were two of our favorite topics. As most of you know, Sue drove a red 1999 Toyota with close to 200,000 miles on it.
To the very end.
Yes. For the last 6 or 7 years, if not longer, Sue wanted to buy a new car. But like me, she didn't want to buy a brand new car and was looking for a good, low mileage used car. I remember not too long ago, Sue called me up to ask what I thought about a car she saw online and that she had talked to the seller about. She told me all about it, the low miles on it, the great price, but there was one little issue. It needed to go into the body shop for some minor repairs, which the seller told her. She then sent me the picture of the car, and it looked like it had been scraped along a brick wall from bumper to bumper on the passenger side. She said, but the seller's going to give me $1,000 off so I can go get it fixed. Well, I'm not an expert on car repairs, but this was well over $1,000 to get it fixed. Looking at 3 or 4 sides of the car, it did look pretty good, but looking at that one side, there was no way. I had to convince her that it wasn't the right car for her to buy. She was bummed because she thought for sure she had finally found a great deal on a great car that she actually liked. We were planning a date to go to the Peterson Auto Museum in LA when she got back from her steamboat trip.
Yeah.
And then we were going to go car shopping together so she could finally get a new car. And Susanna, I'm going to make it to the Peterson soon, and I'm sure I will feel Sue's spirit there with me. One of the best gifts from Sue, and we've heard this before, was being able to live vicariously through her when she traveled the world and shared her extremely detailed and most often very funny emails of her adventures when she was training folks in other parts of the world on how to use medical test kits. If there was one thing that Sue Cohen did, it was live life to the fullest. She saw more of this world than most all of us here combined will ever see in our entire lives. And her journeys were always an adventure, meeting the most interesting people, seeing the most interesting sights this world has to offer. These last 18 years with Tina, they had adventures all over this world that most of us can only dream of. What a life she had. And I know she wasn't finished when she left us. There were many other places on this planet that she and Tina had on a bucket list. But through Sue, I feel as if I've seen not just the typical tourist sites, but a glimpse into the real lives of people around the world that Sue befriended during those travels. I'll never have another friend like Sue Cohen, whose friendship extended literally around the world. Her travels, the people she met, her fearlessness to jump right in with the animals in Africa, including the pangolins. Which, by the way, if not for Sue, I would never have even heard of a pangolin. And their struggle to survive. Her world became our world. When she was out on an adventure, globe-trotting to the four corners of this planet. Thanks, Sue. Sue's biggest gift had to be her heart. She never forgot your birthday. Always a handwritten, sent through snail mail, funny birthday card. She never failed to check in with you when she knew you weren't feeling well or going through a difficult time. It was genuine. Sue truly cared about others. When the Tin Man went to the wizard in search of a heart, the wizard told him, a heart is not judged by how much it loves, but by how much it is loved by others. Sue was truly loved by so many. Every time Sue and I talked to each other, we would end each conversation saying, "Love ya." It feels really good to know that the last words we said to each other were, "Love ya." I love you, Sue. Rest in peace.
I can see her looking quizzically at me about this comment right now. When Sue's last corporate job ended, she took the exit package and stopped working. It was then that she embarked upon her true life's work, to love each and every one of us as deeply and completely as possible, and then some. For context, I'm Sam. Sue and I met in college, and we became lifelong sister friends. Pablo Picasso said, "The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away." Sue's most cherished gift to give and to receive was relationship. We each have our own evidence and stories of this gift. Here are a few of mine. Sue always took my call. She took all your calls too, because I was there. And even if it was just to say, "Can I call you back?" When we did connect, there was no topic off limit, and only the real stuff mattered. She made it a priority to visit and stay long enough to steep in our friendship. And she made sure that she made some type of contribution to whatever was happening in my life. She was there to say farewell to my mom. She helped with yard work and housework. She researched china hutches when I needed one. She also researched cars, tech fixes, medical stuff, and more whenever an interest or a need arose. Some of you know this as Sugoing. She always sought out the perfect gift and card based on her very keen observation and deep listening. I look around my home and see her in so many thoughtful items. She massaged out the knots of pain in my shoulders while I lay in the hospital last year for surgery. And she hugged with heartfelt meaning, like there was all the time in the world and nothing was more important. And this just skims the surface of the depth of Sue's dedication to our 40-plus year friendship. Sue was an expert in love. Those of you familiar with the body of work around the love languages could find Sue expressing each language with agility, expertise, and commitment. Those 5 languages are touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, and gifts. As you reflect on your own relationship with her, you'll no doubt see many, if not all, of these in action. The magic of Sue is that she made you feel like you were the most important person in the world to her. And you were, even among all the other people she held dear and loved. When Sue last left my home the week before she passed, she intentionally, tenderly, and lovingly held my incontinent, halitosis-smelling, cognitively impaired 15-year-old dog, Ellabelle, because Sue wanted her, my dog, to feel her love and appreciation for all the years of cuddles and silly dog antics and companionship, saying that it might be the last time she would ever see her. We thought that was because Ellabelle would be leaving soon, not herself. Now both have left an unfillable and vast void in my life, but I at least see them together. And this is the hallmark of Sue. She seized every opportunity to share her brand of love without hesitation or reservation. She loved in each and every moment. Sue brought humor and laughter and support and light and love to our lives. And because of her, we're better people, and this world is a better place. And this will be true forever. So let's carry on in her image to love completely, without hesitation, and give ourselves to one another, our whole selves.
The same year, 1989, a long time ago. And it is wonderful to see some old friends here. Hi, all the Toxilab people over there. It's great to see you. And to meet some new friends. And this is an opportunity for me to put some faces together with names that I heard from my friend, our mutual friend, many, many times. So it's wonderful to meet all of you too. I'm so glad we have this opportunity to be here so that we can share the stories, share the love, and share the sorrow that we all feel for our mutual friend. Tina, I thank you so very much for hosting this event for us. I know personally what love, what thought, and what consideration you put into putting this together to make it to the ideal event, one that she would be proud of. And I know she is. I know she's there saying, "You did good, honey."
Good job, honey. Good job.
Just like she did all of those times when you put together those wonderful trips that the two of you took. I'm sure of it. Sue is a one-of-a-kind, lifetime, lifelong friend. She was someone that you could count on no matter what. She would be with you to help you to create a little mischief. She'd be with you to see you through unpleasant times. She'd be with you through the joys of life, the sorrows of life, the routine of life. She was always there. There were many times I would call her on the phone and I would say, "I need to talk." And she would say, "Give me a minute." And she would go in another room and shut the door and say, "Okay, what's up?" That's just the kind of person that she was. She was honest. We know that, right? Loving and genuine in every sense. There is a hole in my world that will never be filled again. And even though I'm hurting right now, I am ever so grateful to have her in my life. And I know many of you feel the same way. So in preparing for today, I wanted to tell you a story. And 32 years of friendship, there were a lot of stories and a lot of memories to select from. But I wanted to go with one that I thought was a great illustration of what kind of a friend she was, and also her fantastic sense of humor. So here it is. In 2002, I worked for a company about 90 miles north of here, LifePoint, in case you're the guys that know who it is. And it was 2002, I was an marketing executive, and long days and into the night working were not unusual. And one night I was at the office very late, and I got hungry. So I decided I would go downstairs to the lunchroom to the vending machines that were down there. So I'm going to cut to the crux of the story for this, because how I got my hand stuck in the vending machine and how I was released is really more of a story for my celebration of life. But I will tell you, after I was released, I grabbed some ice and jumped in my car to head to the ER because I was sure I had a broken wrist. And on the way, I called Sue. And she talked to me. I called her for advice and for comfort and to tell her this, you're not going to believe this one story. So she talked me through about 2/3 of the way. And I got to the emergency room and I got all the paperwork done and I got checked in, and I'm sitting there waiting because apparently in the triage system in an ER, a vending machine eating your hand is not high on the list. So I'm waiting, and all of a sudden this little stuffed bunny comes over my shoulder and lands in my lap from nowhere. Next thing you know, I'm getting one of Sue's wonderful big bear hugs. She came to spend the time with me in the ER, and she was with me for hours. She was there the whole time. So of course she made me laugh. I mean, it was a pretty ridiculous story, right? So she made me laugh, and she made everybody around me, all of the other broken patients that were there, they were all having a great time with Sue too, as you can imagine. So it comes time for me to go back for my treatment, and Sue went with me. And by that time, she had made up a story even better than having my hand caught in a vending machine full of candy. So needless to say, she had the ER staff really enjoying our time there and laughing and having a good time. So I would say that when we left, they were sorry to see us leave, but not as sorry as I am that she left us that September so quickly. I love you, Sue.
Later, Sue and Tina invited my husband, who's here, Greg, back there, and I to join them at an adventure up in Los Angeles. It was called Who's Pink, and they're a Pink Floyd cover band.
Oh, boy. No, that one.
I'm gonna censor, don't worry.
All right, we need to get the alcohol
Sorry,
flowing.
yeah, gotta get
I want to know this story.
Speaking of alcohol, I at that time had a very bad back, and so I was self-medicating. And if you knew Sue, Sue did not necessarily self-medicate, but if we lived vicariously through her, she also lived vicariously through those of us who did imbibe. She got the best kick out of people who got very drunk or very high or both, depending, but she was definitely an encourager. She just really had a great time with that. Well, Tina and Sue picked us up at our house. Sue was the designated driver. I was in the back seat, heavily medicated. And we were driving in LA traffic. And Sue was driving. And Sue, again, if you've ever ridden with Sue, Sue drives fast, tailgates, all of these different things. And I'm sitting in the back, heavily medicated. And I look and I'm like, there's a car coming at us. No, that's not a car coming at us. That's us coming at the car. Stop. I remember myself saying, Stop, 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 from the back seat. Stop, 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 stop became kind of a running joke from then on in all of the adventures that we had with Sue and Tina. All of the different bar hopping, all of the different adventures, the musical theater, every time we got in a car together and Sue was driving. Stop, 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 stop. I miss her. We'll miss her forever, but talk about great memories in the introduction, and I just wanted to share that story.
Yes, you do, but that proves her dedication
Yeah.
and her loyalty and friendship. So here's to Sue, who didn't drink alcohol.
Yeah.
Because I would love to be like her in my friendships and will going forward. What a great woman.
Yeah. Yeah. Here, here.
When I was fortunate enough to be paired with her as a roommate at Braden Hall at CSU, it was a very shy sophomore transfer student. I was a very shy sophomore transfer student from Maryland, and I didn't know a soul on campus. Sue, upbeat, extraordinary, was a gift I could never repay. She was gregarious, supportive, kind, and extremely friendly. She helped me come out of my shell and welcomed me into her wide circle of friends who adored her as much as I did. I was blessed to have shared not just a dorm room, but a loving community because of her friendship. She was a force of nature, and I am sorry that she left this world so soon. May God comfort you. And then Sue sent me a card that said, Mom, the older I get, the more I realize how much you've done for me all my life. I thought all mothers loved and cared for their daughters the way you always did for me, but the more I see this world, the more I know that our relationship is exceptional. I'm so lucky to have a mother who taught me how to love myself as well as others, to trust my own instincts, and to be true to myself. You've always been a special person, Mom, always caring for the people and the world around you. Thank you for raising me the way you did. I really love you. And then she adds, and I'm having trouble reading this, no funny cards this year. I can't read.
I'm a specialist.
Just a very sincere and meaningful. I can't even read this. Read that.
No funny card this year, just a very sincere and meaningful message telling you how much you are appreciated. Oh, this is tough even for me. You did a great job raising us. Don't let anyone underlined tell you otherwise. I'm proud of who I am and proud to call you Mom. I love you very much, Sue.
And I appreciate everybody who came. It's very touching. Thank you.
Their grandmother, from my son and Tina being married before, and so they're my grandkids, and no matter what happened between my son and her, I wasn't going to abandon my grandkids. So I just said, this is the way it is, and I have to be there for them. And I was there for them. They lived with me for 2 years while things were working out. And in all that time, I never even met Sue. She pulled up in front of the house while Tina picked them up because it was a tough time for all of us. And
Well, you get to know her.
but yes, eventually we met, and eventually we became a family. And Sue is a wonderful person that we love very, very much. And I, even as somebody, you said, that she never thought she would be a parent. And she actually stepped up and became a very good parent.
Yes, she did.
And she looked at us as her in-laws, even though I was 10 when she was born. But that's okay. But we became a family, and Sue was a wonderful person and very generous and giving and kind. And she was a good parent to my grandkids, who as everybody knows, I have to keep my family together no matter what. No matter who they are or what they are, I have to keep them all in my love. And so that's,
Here, here.
She and I both were very sarcastic at that age, and our friends weren't so much. So, as you all say, when she told me that she had met Tina and that was the love of her life, and she goes, "Sit down before I tell you the rest," because she has kids. I'm like, I literally fell on the floor. But
It wasn't something you kind of knew her and then you worked at it and you worked at it. It was just like you met her and you became her best friend. Yep. And that was my experience too. Golfing was our thing. Sue came and met me at a hotel some of you are staying at in her red car. I threw my clubs in the back and we went to the golf course. And I don't know how many times I said, and please forgive me, but she goes, "Oh my God, you hit the ball far." I can't even see it anymore, which made me feel good. But then she was self-deprecating, right? And she was like, I can't hit. And she was a good golfer. She was a good golfer. I mean, hit the ball straight, maybe not as far as she wanted to, but she hit the ball straight, and she was, and it was a quality about her I learned to really appreciate. And a lot of you have talked about this in different ways, but she just wanted excellence, and she wants excellence out of everybody. And if you go to the restaurant and they don't do the fish the way they're supposed to do the fish, you send the fish back till they do the fish right, because they should know how to do the fish.
That's right.
And you go to the room and the stupid air conditioning's rattling. That shouldn't be like that. They can do better. And you know what? They can. And she can prove it. She's had how many upgrades? And there's a nicer room in the place. And they get to go there for free sometimes. And so that might seem like a picky thing or that's just being mean. But it wasn't anything that Sue didn't expect from herself.
Yes.
She expected
Yes.
the best. And she would work really hard at whether it was I loved your wilted head of lettuce thing. It didn't matter what it was. She was going to work at it. And so...
What's the wilted head of lettuce?
You didn't hear Tina earlier said it didn't matter how big the issue was, whether it was a wilted head of lettuce or it was, a bigger thing. At Tina's prompting, at some point, and Tina remembers this as being very early in our relationship. I remember it being a little bit later, but at Tina's prompting, we decided to start a game of words with friends. Do you remember this game? Yeah. It took over the world. So we would do words with friends, and then Tina told me when I would send a high-scoring word sometimes, Sue would say, effing Darren. And she wouldn't say effing Darren, if you know what I'm saying. But I'm going to apply company. Effing Darren. And somehow the game dwindled away. And I know if she was here, she would tell you because I didn't pose a challenge anymore. But I believe it was because she got tired of saying effing Darren. She didn't like the way that sounded anymore. And that's my story, so.
My name is Kyle. I am Tina's son, but as we have talked about before, I was also Sue's son, and it is as amazing as it is, but also as awful as it is. The last thing that I ever said to Sue was that she was just as much of a mom to me as my own mom was. Yeah. And that I'm trying not to cry yet because I'm going to be making all of you cry. At least that's the plan. And so I'm not too good at speeches, and so I created a memorial video for Sue to some specific songs, one of them her choosing. She said this song is going to be my, like, if you're going to do a funeral or a celebration or anything along those lines, this is the song you have to play. Told her repetitively. This will be the second song on the playlist.
Nice.
And so I'm not good at speeches, but I want like instead of a speech or a story, I just want like my thing for Sue is this video, and I hope you all enjoy it.
Kyle, you did an awesome job.